What up? What up? Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Hope you've been having a great week thus far, my friend. Hope that you've been doing well. You've been smashing through your goals. You've been taking some action. You've been achieving and unlocking success in your life. So on this show, we talk a lot, obviously, about Kickstarter, Indigo, crowdfunding, regulation crowdfunding, all the things that you can basically do to get a project up off the ground. Even a startup company, even a new business. A lot of my clients, a lot of my students who I'm talking with are not only trying to do one project, but multiple, or they're trying to launch a campaign and really build brand awareness and penetrate an entire new marketplace. And sometimes you can be in such a competitive category that you got to think outside of the box. And I know a lot of my listeners are those sort of outside of the box thinkers. And not only that, but you guys are freaking dedicated, man. You guys are dedicated to training yourself. You're dedicated to the cutting edge when it comes to new processes like crowdfunding. And that's what I love about you guys. So today we're actually talking with an individual, an entrepreneur who's been able to attract more than 7,000 backers for their Kickstarter campaign. Not only that, but they created kind of an all-in-one device that actually is in a very competitive category, I would say. But what's one of the coolest things I think that you want to listen to in today's episode is how they've actually been able to brand themselves, how they've been able to stand out in their category and almost make their product pop. One of the cool things about the Kickstarter X factor, or kind of the secrets, if you will, of crowdfunding is you always need to have something that's going to make that product pop. Almost seem like way cooler than just an ordinary device, something that other people are going to notice when they go into the room. They're going to look at whatever it is that you're selling. So they're going to talk a little bit about that and how they were able to have a cohesive vision behind the product and be able to bring something into the world, into a very crowded marketplace, like I said, that really stands out in that way and attract more than $490,000 for their crowdfunding campaign now in demand, and also raising even more there. So a lot of cool stuff, but I think that one of the other big things about today's episode is just understanding that literally anyone out there can do this. Even if you've never created a product before, you can launch a crowdfunding campaign. I've had students who have really come to me with just an idea. At a point in time, maybe they book a coaching call or something like that, and then they start to move through this process, and all of a sudden, before you know it, they are being successful. And like I said, it's not necessarily something that's mysterious. There is a formula, there is a system, there's a paint by numbers fashion that you just have to follow in order to be successful when it comes to a new product launch. Now, I'm not saying that every product out there is going to be successful, right? But a lot of times, even if something is not, you kind of just move on and you learn from that experience and you work on your next idea. And maybe your first campaign wasn't successful, and then your second one was, right? So we always try to take a very long-term view when it comes to success with crowdfunding, with Kickstarter, and also with life. And I think that at the end of today's episode, you're really going to understand not only how to smash your goal with the crowdfunding campaign, some of the tips that I have when it comes to marketing and branding, and also some of the creative things you need to do in order to be successful. So if you just kind of want to stay on the cutting edge, if you want to make sure that you're really downloading all this information into your mind, that you're investing in your education, that you're always just turning your life, right, into an academy almost, you can just join my free newsletter where I share with you weekly some of the new stuff that I'm discovering every single week. So these are like tidbits, these are little things I'm discovering. It could be a tool, could be a technique, could be a method that I've recently stumbled upon. I'm always trying to brainstorm and come up with the cutting edge techniques to really bring you from launching a project to being successful and to having a product out there in the world, obviously growing your brand. So just go to this link. You can join my free newsletter and you can start to learn more about some of those advice and tips that I mentioned at crowdcrux.com/newsletter. That is crowdcrux.com/newsletter, crowdcrux.com/newsletter. And if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, I have a program that I'm going to be announcing at the end, an opportunity basically where I can work with a couple of you when it comes to long-term coaching and really getting this thing launched right. So if you're interested, stay around to the end of this episode and you'll hear more about that. But that being said, let's dive right in and let's learn how this individual is able to raise more than $400,000 with their Kickstarter campaign. And it's coming up right after this. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured, I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. We have an extremely successful campaign that's attracted more than 6,000 backers for Passport 3 all-in-one 65-watt adapter for home and travel. And we have the creator here today on the show. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me, Salvador.
Definitely. I think we get started. Maybe you can kind of tell listeners a bit about some of the other projects you've created. I know you have a pretty illustrious history here when it comes to Kickstarter.
Oh, thank you. Our first product was a power bank that we called the A series. It's a super durable, luggage inspired series of portable chargers. We launched that in September 2013 and got a little over 216,000 for our first campaign. And it really helped us get things off the ground.
And you guys, it sounds like you've done over 10 campaigns. Is that right now?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know the exact number, but that sounds about right.
And you're also on Indiegogo. Are you doing multiple campaigns as well on Kickstarter? Did I see that right?
We've had multiple campaigns on Kickstarter, but currently Passport 3 is the only one that's active.
Okay. And then you've also done some Indiegogo campaigns, you were saying.
That's right.
Cool, man. That's so exciting. What were you doing really before you got started with this company?
Before this, had worked as a web developer for the college that I graduated from. I was doing web development and working on the alumni magazine. And then after that, I worked here and there before starting a company.
That's great. Did you ever imagine that you'd have, like 10 campaigns under your belt or more and all these different products that you're coming out with?
Well, I think when you launch a business, you hope that it's going to be successful, but the statistics say that, usually doesn't pan out. Within the first 5 years, most businesses fall through. So I didn't expect us to be this successful, but I certainly had hoped for it.
And it sounds like you also have a bunch of different verticals that you're in. For someone who's listening, maybe you could just kind of describe that. Is this all for just laptop accessories or for travel? What's sort of your focus with these?
When we first started the company, it was all about mobile handheld power. So, power banks, portable chargers, external batteries. And then we moved into some office type things. We have a couple of hubs and USB chargers. But our new push right now is toward the green energy revolution and what we can do to kind of move away from less sustainable fuel sources and products that would generally lessen our negative impact on the planet. And so we have, for example, Super Base Pro, which we launched on Indiegogo a few months ago. That's a larger battery for camping, off-grid living, stuff like that. And we're very interested in that field. And we've also got some solar panels and a few more power stations coming out soon.
And why is that important to you?
It's hard to know exactly what our impact on the planet is. A lot of people have a lot of opinions on that. But I think we owe it to society in general to try and keep things going as long as we can, right?
Mm.
And I do think we can make some kind of a difference on the planet. And if we can, I think it should be a positive difference.
When did that really become important to you? You started to pursue that kind of a mission.
For a long time, I think I was all talk. I'd be in the forums championing these, global welfare kind of initiatives. But Brian, the co founder of Zendor, he's the CEO, he suggested, why don't we do something bigger than the power banks? Because I think we can make a real difference. And as soon as he said it, it just sounded so right.
Yeah, it does sound like it's kind of like, entrepreneurs are kind of playing a role in that way of kind of changing the technology we use, right, in society, which is actually a really big role in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I agree. Ultimately, consumer, interest drives whether or not we sell things. But at the same time, I do think it goes both ways that what's available can become what's popular.
For you, what is your role in the project? You obviously mentioned your background in design development. What's your role when it comes to launching these new campaigns?
When it comes to the campaigns itself, my primary focus is on communication. So that's the copy that we use, the photos, the video, things like that. In the grand scheme of things, I work a lot on our brand image as well as a little bit of input on the product aesthetics, look and feel, usability side of things. I'm not much of an engineer, so I leave the actual engineering part to the experts, but I do try to, have some input on what we make, not just how we sell it.
When you're kind of going through that process of trying to communicate that to someone, how are you creating different brand guidelines? Like, are you consciously thinking through the colors, the fact you're going to have kind of rounded edges? Like, I'm looking through your words here, right? The kind of fonts and all that stuff. Are you actively thinking about all those different variables?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every factor, when you're designing a product, everything needs to look deliberate. You can't have any happy accidents in design because if it looks like it's designed well, that speaks to the quality of the product itself and it gives people a lot more confidence. So it's important to try and have the look and feel, have the aesthetic communicate the product's actual utility.
So you would almost say that it matters almost as much as the utility, because if it doesn't look good, someone might not even consider buying it. They think it's just not a good quality, right?
Maybe almost. I don't want to upset any of our engineers, though.
Yeah, we don't want to start any internal company battles. That's cool, man. So when it comes to that, is this like intuitive for you, and you just kind of naturally pick out colors and the way it looks, or do you have a process as well? You kind of go through different tactics and.
Generally, we get some idea of what we want it to look like, and then we talk about it for a while. A lot of times, when other people in the company, I rely on other people to come up with the ideas themselves. And then I'm more like the no person. I'm always thinking of why I don't like this color, why I don't like this font. So I think, it's definitely a team effort. I do come up with a couple of ideas that go through, but more often than not, we have this abundance of talent in our company where I'm kind of blessed to be able to say no to a lot of really good ideas.
So I got to be honest with you. When I first think about being able to have like a charger that will have different wall outlets and like plug in USB, et cetera, it sounds kind of like a boring product, but you guys have actually made it
Hmm.
really fascinating, right? And
Yeah, I
all these
think
different components. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
absolutely. Yeah, we know that travel adapters are generally not very interesting products, maybe to the average person. When we first launched the Passport series several years, one of the major differences that we put into it was a self resetting fuse. So, a lot of these other travel adapters on the market, if you draw too much power, you'll blow an internal fuse and you have to open it up and get a new one. And, no one knows where to go to get a fuse on their vacation so that they can plug their
Mm,
computer back in. A lot of people really seemed to be interested in that, but it was kind of a hard push because we had to educate a lot of people. A lot of people don't know about the fuse. They never think about the fuse. So with this one, we thought, what can we do differently that everyone's just going to look at it and instantly know that it stands out?
mhm.
And so we got a little bit more brave, I think, with the aesthetic this time around.
Yeah, it does seem like you really made a very deliberate choice when it comes to that. Do you feel like that was kind of risky? Like, did you feel anxiety before you were launching, or you just like, you really felt confident about that?
Yeah, I would say that we weren't 100% certain how everyone was going to respond to it. We did do some limited surveys. We talked about it amongst ourselves and narrowing down the colors that we wanted to launch. There was a lot of back and forth there because normally our passport products, our travel adapters, come in sort of a matte white and a matte dark gray.
Mhm.
And so this time around, we have the transparent gradient faceplate, and then this translucent body. That's a huge departure, I think, not only from what we do, but from what you generally see in this type of product. But we thought, I think people will look at it and think that looks kind of fun,
Yeah, it kinda adds personality a little bit.
a little bit of personality.
Yeah, yeah. This is kind of, I guess, a dumb question, but, at this point in time, having done so many campaigns, do you still feel a sense of excitement about launching one of these and seeing, the funding come in initially and getting backers and that kinda stuff?
Yeah, every time, it's just such a huge feeling to see people actually responding to what we're doing. When we launched our first campaign in 2013, we had no idea how successful it might be. And I remember watching the numbers go. And at one point, I was looking at the numbers and I'm like, that's more than the number of friends and family I told. So that means that someone out there who doesn't know me personally is buying this product. That was really exciting, but it is exciting every time.
Mhm. And I imagine a lot of the people that support your brand are really also looking forward to these new launches and being able to kind of get access to this before other people when you start selling it regularly. So I guess one of my questions was, why keep coming back to Kickstarter, right? When you could just kind of sell on your own site or go that way.
We really like the community aspect of it. We have some fans who are really, really enthusiastic about our brand and what we're doing. We're not quite ready to give that away just yet.
For sure, for sure. Do you find, a lot of people say Kickstarter's community is a lot bigger, right, than Indiegogo, and there's some differences there. How would you, at least in your own experience, describe some of your differences between the two platforms?
Kickstarter, I would say, has what I would call kind of a bigger discovery engine built into it, where if you have a really good first day, you'll probably have a really good second day when Kickstarter starts driving more traffic to it because it's already got that momentum. On Indiegogo, you really have to be your own cheerleader and find ways to get the word out.
Hmm.
So I think that's one of the big differences. But whichever platform you choose to do, you have to work on your messaging just as much as you work on the product. It's really important in crowdfunding.
Was there a reason then you decided to try on the Indiegogo platform, given your success on Kickstarter?
We're always just kind of trying to see what we think might be best for our different efforts. Sometimes we might be working with a marketing company, someone who does ad targeting, and they have more success on Indiegogo than on Kickstarter. So if we're working with them, we sometimes defer to their preference.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. One of the biggest kind of difficulties I find with a lot of new creators is kind of knowing how to price their products, right? Do you have any thoughts on that? You guys having done a bunch of these, do you have any ways in which you try to figure that out? Or is it formulas or is it just kind of based on your knowledge of the user base?
We try to be fairly competitive with our pricing, but we never want to get into a situation where it's like a race to the bottom. You know, if you focus too much on pricing, for example, in your messaging, then what you're telling people is that the price is the most important thing. And then now you're basically advertising for whoever has the lowest price, which might not be you.
Hmm.
So, we definitely don't, inflate our prices by any means. So it's important to assure potential backers that, this is a quality product.
One of the things I noticed, and we were kind of talking about before, is the fact you guys are based in Palo Alto, right? Which is
Right.
kind of like the heart of Silicon Valley. What's the sentiment there in that kind of industry when it comes to crowdfunding? And do you feel like that's an advantage to you being in that kind of environment?
I think it is because there are so many entrepreneurs here that, there's no illusions about what running a business is like, that it's generally not this monolithic thing. It really is just regular people trying stuff out.
Mm.
And I think the crowdfunding is a lot more personal and, it brings the people of the company into the whole brand. And I think in a place like this that's so rich in entrepreneurship, it really speaks to everyone's instincts already.
The other interesting thing I notice about companies coming out of Palo Alto is they have a very strong mission focus, right? A very strong set of beliefs. Do you feel like that is something that, you guys just naturally are like, or do you deliberately build the company thinking about like values and thinking about the mission and that kind of stuff?
I think the mission it's a very personal thing because, I came from a business school. And one thing that I learned is if you want to be wealthy, you probably shouldn't start a business. There are better, more reliable ways to get a return on your investment. So, just because you're starting a company, that doesn't mean that your goal at the end of the day is to retire when you're 38.
Mhm.
And so, people start companies often because there's something that they feel they need to do.
And for you, what would you say that is if you had to fill in the blank? Because you're obviously kind of like almost like the crafting the face, right,
Mhm.
of this product. For you, is it like feeling like you need to get attention to something, the technology that is deserving of it, or what are your thoughts on that?
When we started the company, it was Brian's idea to start a portable charger company, and I really liked the idea because I had interned at for Kodak for a while. My dad was an electrical engineer. My mom assembled circuits, and I had this background in photography and writing and web development. And it was like, oh, I think I can do all of those things, but why should I? And the reason basically is whenever I use some new product that I've never used before, it doesn't take me more than two minutes to hate something about it. Whether it's software or hardware, there's always something that kind of bugs me, and I'm always complaining to my friends about it.
Mm.
And when Brian suggested we start our own company, I was like, oh, maybe I won't be all talk from now on.
Yeah, and put that agitation to good use, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's mostly what I hound the engineering team on, is the look and feel and the user experience, because I don't know myself how to build something from whole cloth, but I have a lot of strong opinions on how I want it to work.
Are you also involved in sort of telling the story a bit of the product or the story of the brand and how people feel about that?
Yes, I did kind of suggest earlier that Silicon Valley is like the only place where people get what it's like to own a company or something like that. But the whole idea of crowdfunding is that you're letting everyone, your backers and everyone, see a piece of your company, from a more personal perspective. And so, I think people need to see that personal touch.
Yeah, I think it really makes it much more worthwhile, right? If you're following something and you're supporting something before it's created, to know there are reasons behind that, right? And they're very deliberate design choices, it makes it way more fun, right? To be a part of that kind of journey.
Yeah. And I like the way you said it, that they're a part of it too, because I feel that way. And I know a lot of our backers do as well.
So one of the things I think is really difficult as well for people is you've been able to very successfully bring this brand to social media as well. Like looking at your Instagram, right? You got a YouTube channel, all this kind of stuff. Where do you feel like the direction's kind of heading when it comes to social media? Because we talk a lot about like email marketing, all that stuff. When it comes to social media, where do you feel like the direction is kind of heading with people's attention?
Attention is a really good word to use for it because I think, as time goes on, the messages have to be shorter and more frequent. You can't just do, you know, a really, really long newsletter every month and email it to people and have that make an impact. You've got to be, constantly communicating about your brand, and you have to do it fast because that skip ad button is just waiting for anyone to click. And there's, people read so many posts in whatever feed on whatever social media they're using that it's so easy for someone to scroll right past you. So you have to stand out, you have to not waste their time, and you have to be persistent.
Which can be challenging, I think, for any creator, right? Not wanting to annoy
Yeah.
people or not want to come off as spammy.
Right. Because whatever message we're crafting is always going to be more interesting to us than to the average person. It's our company. We're very excited about this. But to another person, it can be very annoying. And, if they feel it's annoying, then they're right.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely one perspective. I feel like, if you've really done your homework to create something that's light years better with technology and helping with green environmental resource, you almost have an obligation to tell people about it, right? If it is better, because otherwise they're not going to try it. They're not going to use it.
Right. You can't make a difference with a product that no one wants to use.
So that's why at least I think when it comes to promotion, it makes a lot of sense just to go for it. If you really have done your homework, you believe in it, it's doing good for the world, those kinds of things. Because you are competing with like Coca-Cola and all these other companies and stuff,
Mhm.
right? But not to go off on a tangent there. One of the other quick questions I had for you is having done these campaigns, having seen this multiple times, do you have any things that you feel like aren't addressed or talked about very much when it comes to crowdfunding? Any kind of secrets or things that you really you think that people could benefit from hearing?
I think a lot of us, when we first heard about crowdfunding, it's because the big major tech blogs were covering the heck out of this one or that one. There was the dot and the pebble, the potato salad. It's important to know that if you're going to try crowdfunding, those are the exceptions. You know, it's even you could have the coolest thing in the world. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get picked up by the one that starts with an E or the one that starts with a G. So you have to be your own cheerleader, but absolutely reach out to those blogs all the time. Keep telling them about your product, keep telling them about how your campaign is going,
Mm.
in the hopes that you'll get in, but don't rely on that.
Yeah, for sure. One other quick question I had on your different projects is, sometimes people are just kind of looking to the future. Other times people will look at the past. Do you have a favorite product that you've done so far, a favorite campaign, or one that kind of stands out in your mind? Or is it for you just like always the next one? You're just looking forward?
Yeah, I think I'm always most excited about the next thing that we're working on.
And with this one, would you say what kind of brings you the most excitement is when people are finally going to be able to use this in their life, right? And have all this different functionality and how it looks cool, and they're probably gonna get some comments, right? If they're using this out. What do you feel like you're looking forward to with that experience?
I like the idea of a product where someone might be using it out in the wild and someone else will look at it and say, "What the heck is that?" This funky purple and pink metallic thing with the kind of like retro futuristic look, and it's just a travel adapter. It's a USB charger. It's a nice thing to have, but
Mhm.
no one's that interested in looking at someone else's brand. You know, you're never going to
Yeah.
hear, "What is that white cube?" So
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to the idea of it being discovered that way.
Yeah, and kinda you touched on something really interesting, which I think honestly you seem pretty good at, which is it says something about that person that owns that, right? Like, it says something about their personality, which is so cool. It, like, plays into their identity almost, and when people notice that, it's like they also notice the person that owns that, which is kinda
That's
cool.
exactly it. Earlier you talked about, making deliberate choices in design and communicating that to people. And I think, if you get one of the other plainer looking travel adapters, that's not necessarily a deliberate, aesthetic decision to buy that one. But if you buy this one, it's definitely a statement. It's not subtle. And so, buying this product is a very deliberate thing. You have to choose to do it.
Well, on that note, where can people go to learn a little bit more about this campaign that I know you got going on for a couple more days here? Where can they go to learn more?
You can go on Kickstarter and search for Passport. We have 7 more days in our campaign, and we're hoping to reach our next stretch. We just crossed 400,000 yesterday, I think. That opened our first stretch goal, where all of our backers are going to get $5 worth of Zen points that they can use on future Zendor purchases. And that'll go up to 10 if we reach 500,000.
Exciting, very cool. So I'll be sure to link that up in the show notes. And my final question for you here is, if you could speak to the beginning creator in the audience. You've done so many of these projects. You obviously are pretty talented when it comes to the design side, but for someone who's just kind of starting out, they see that and it's like, almost seems untouchable, right? What would you say to them? Either a word of encouragement, a final tip, something you wish you knew, anything along those lines. And we can end on that note.
Don't do it alone.
Don't do it alone. Make sure you have a team. Make sure you have people working with you.
Yeah, you have to bring people into it, because when you finally launch, you're not going to be alone once you launch. Everyone's going to be watching. So you might as well already have a few people on your side before you get started.
Yeah, and honestly, just a quick follow-up. I think that's a good message as well, because we look at these really beautiful finished products and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like an alien made this thing, right? Because like no one person could. And that's exactly right, because it's made of like a bunch of people that actually worked on that.
Yeah, and it's important to know what your strengths are, what you're interested in. And if there's something where you say, if I had so-and-so helping me with this, then this aspect of it would probably be better. Go for it.
Well said. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing some of your philosophies when it comes to design, aesthetics, advice, Kickstarter, etc. I really appreciate it and look forward to your remaining days.
Thanks, Salvador. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. I hope that I'm at least bringing a little bit of motivation into your life when it comes to launching this campaign. I know it's a lot of work. It can seem like a lot of different moving pieces. And I think that one of the things, whenever you're trying to do a process, whenever you're trying to accomplish something, for example, you're trying to get better as a sprinter, right? Maybe you're really enjoying track or something like that when you were younger. The way to get better as a sprinter is not only to be training every single day, to be going to practice, to be showing up, to learn about what other sprinters do in order to deal with common problems, right? In order to improve the strength of your muscles, or to make sure that every time that you're going out there to an actual competition that you are showing up as your best, you gotta have a coach. And there's a bunch of different reasons behind that. And for so much in my life, I've also, I think, resisted that fact. But we do, as human beings, tend to perform better when we have someone else who understands the path ahead. Not only when it comes to benchmarking us, not only when it comes to keeping us on track, but also really seeing our own potential and holding us to some of those bigger goals that we have. And I think one of the biggest things as well as a coach is just having that mountain of experience, which they can condense into a very easy to understand training program, or very easy to understand slim volumes that you can go through. You can just kind of breeze through. You know exactly what you got to do. If you've ever took English classes, right, when you were younger, you might have to, if you want to read an entire book in order to take an exam, it takes so long. It's one of those things where it's like you're staying up, you really don't want to read this. You have to reread chapters because you don't even remember it. But I think that one of the biggest discoveries that I had, at least when I was in school, was Spark Notes, and having having a very slim volume where you just have to reference it. You understand everything that you need to know in order to be successful with that exam. And that's kind of one of the things that I like to bring to this industry is, how do we make a process faster? How do we make a process easier? And something you go through where you don't have to learn everything. You just have to know the most critical components of that process in order to see a profound result in your life, in your business, and also with your crowdfunding campaign. So that's really why I've developed my mentorship program, where not only am I giving you access to some of the things that I've learned that I don't share publicly when it comes to launching and being successful, some of the proven tricks, techniques, some of the tools that you can use in order to have much more results when it comes to raising money, but also some of the different worksheets and templates, some of the things you can literally just copy and paste when it comes to your email sequence, when it comes to your landing page, when it comes to putting together a Kickstarter campaign page, all the things that I spent years learning, I've really put investment into this entire system and into this mentorship package so that you can actually gain access to this one-off, but also you can continue a long-term coaching relationship with me. And the reason why is that I've had so many students recently that are just like, Sal, I'm more of in an idea phase, but I want to continue working with you, man. Just like you bring a whole level of motivation to what it is that I'm doing. Not only that, but I know that you know the entire path. I just want to make sure I do it right. And I don't want to spend months and months on this when I don't have to. Right? So if you're kind of one of those people that not only want to invest in your own education, but also want to invest in yourself, if you want to put yourself in the best position possible to be successful, go and check out my monthly mentorship program. Or again, this is a long-term coaching arrangement. And you can also pop in and pop out if you want to in that program, which is a really freaking cool experience. And because I gather a lot of information as well, my students, it's easier for me to continue to help them throughout their processes when it comes to their crowdfunding campaign. So go and check out this link I'm about to mention. You can learn more about that at crowdcrux.com/VIP. That is crowdcrux.com/VIP, crowdcrux.com/VIP. Check out the mentorship package there at crowdcrux.com/VIP. Thank you so much for tuning in today's podcast episode. It means a lot. Leave me a rating and review if you liked it. And if that you found that very helpful, I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. And I will see you next time.